What happens when a beloved television presenter walks onto a set expecting a friendly chat, only to face a barrage of personal attacks and shocking accusations that leave the entire studio speechless? In just 41 seconds, one cutting remark would unravel years of professional courtesy and expose the true colors of a host whose reputation would never recover. Holly Willoughby arrived at the studio that morning with her trademark smile, ready to discuss her latest charity work and upcoming projects. The energy backstage felt normal. Hair and makeup artists buzzed around her, producers checked their clipboards, and the usual pre-show jitters filled the air. She had been on Lorraine Kelly's show countless times before. This was supposed to be easy, comfortable, routine, but the moment Holly stepped onto that set and took her seat across from Lorraine, something felt different. The air had shifted. Lorraine's smile seemed tighter than usual, her eyes sharper. Sitting alongside Lorraine on the panel were Ross King, the entertainment correspondent known for his cheerful demeanor, and Ranveer Singh, the news anchor who always brought a measured, professional presence to any discussion. They exchanged quick glances with Holly, friendly nods, nothing out of the ordinary. The cameras started rolling. Lorraine leaned forward in her chair, her hands clasped together on the desk. "Well, well, well," she began, her voice dripping with a tone that immediately put Holly on edge. "Look who's decided to grace us with her presence. Holly Willoughby, everyone." The audience clapped politely, but Holly noticed the strange emphasis Lorraine had placed on those words. Decided to grace us with her presence, as if Holly showing up was some kind of favor she was bestowing upon them. Holly kept smiling, professional as always. "Thanks so much for having me, Lorraine. It's always lovely to be here." "Is it, though?" Lorraine shot back, her eyebrows raised. "Is it really? Because I have to say, Holly, you've been awfully selective about where you show your face these days, haven't you?" Ross King shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ranveer Singh's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. This wasn't the warm, welcoming tone that usually defined the show. Holly's smile faltered for just a moment. "I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand what you mean." Lorraine let out a short, sharp laugh. "Oh, come on. Don't play coy with me. You know exactly what I mean. You turn up on every other morning show, every podcast, every magazine cover. But when it comes to this show, suddenly you're too busy. Suddenly we're not quite good enough for you, are we?" The studio fell silent. You could hear the camera operators breathing. Holly blinked, genuinely taken aback. "Lorraine, I've been on your show many times. I'm here right now because I wanted to be here." "Wanted to be here," Lorraine repeated mockingly. "How generous of you. How absolutely magnanimous. Tell me, Holly, do you practice that humble routine in the mirror, or does it just come naturally?" Ross King finally spoke up, his voice uncertain. "Lorraine, maybe we should talk about Holly's charity work. That's why she's here today, isn't it?" Lorraine turned to Ross with a withering look. "Ross, darling, why don't you let me handle my own show? Unless you'd like to take over completely?" Ross immediately backed down, raising his hands in surrender. No, of course not. I was just trying to..." "You were just trying to what?" Lorraine snapped. "Rescue poor little Holly from the big bad host? She's a grown woman, Ross. She can fight her own battles. If she's capable of it, that is." Holly's jaw tightened. She took a deep breath, maintaining her composure. "Lorraine, I came here today in good faith. If I've done something to upset you, I genuinely have no idea what it is. Can we just talk about this like adults?" Lorraine leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Adults, that's rich. You want to talk like adults? Fine. Let's talk about how you've built this entire brand on being relatable, being the girl next door, being everyone's best friend. But behind the scenes, you're just as calculated and career-obsessed as the rest of them," Ranveer Singh interjected, her voice calm but firm. "Lorraine, that's quite an accusation. Do you have any basis for saying that?" Lorraine spun toward Ranveer. "Oh, here we go. Another one jumping to her defense. Why am I not surprised? You all stick together, don't you? The pretty ones. The ones with the perfect hair and the perfect lives. Ranveer looked genuinely shocked. I'm just asking you to back up what you're saying. That's journalism, Lorraine. Don't lecture me about journalism, Lorraine hissed. I've been doing this since before you were born. Holly's hands were trembling slightly, but her voice remained steady. Lorraine, I don't know what's going on with you today, but this isn't fair. I came here to talk about a cause that's important to me, to raise awareness for children in need, and instead, you're sitting here making personal attacks. Personal attacks? Lorraine scoffed. You think this is personal? Sweetheart, if I wanted to make this personal, we'd be talking about a lot more than just your carefully crafted public image. We could talk about the rumors. We could talk about the real reason you left your last show. We could talk about... Stop, Holly said quietly, but with such force that everyone froze. Just stop. The entire studio held its breath. Holly's eyes were glistening, but she refused to cry. She refused to give Lorraine that satisfaction. I have never, Holly continued, her voice shaking with controlled emotion, claimed to be perfect. I have never pretended to be anything other than who I am. Yes, I work hard. Yes, I care about my career. But I also care about people. I care about using whatever platform I have to make a difference. And I thought you did too, Lorraine. I thought that's what this show was about. Lorraine opened her mouth to respond, but Holly wasn't finished. I've looked up to you for years, Holly said, and now there were tears in her eyes. You were one of the women in this industry who paved the way for people like me. You were kind and supportive and real, or at least I thought you were. But this isn't strength, Lorraine. This isn't honesty. This is cruelty. Ross King looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. Ranveer Singh was staring at Lorraine with barely concealed disgust. Lorraine's face had turned red. How dare you, she began, her voice rising. How dare you come onto my show and lecture me about... Your show, Holly interrupted, and there was steel in her voice now. This isn't your show, Lorraine. This is a platform that was given to you, just like any platform I've been given. And the difference between us is that I try to use mine to lift people up, not tear them down. The silence that followed was deafening. Lorraine's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She had clearly expected Holly to crumble, to apologize, to make herself smaller. Instead, Holly had stood her ground. I think, Lorraine finally managed, her voice tight and controlled, that you're being incredibly ungrateful. I invited you here. I gave you airtime. And this is how you repay me? Holly shook her head slowly. You didn't invite me here to give me airtime, Lorraine. You invited me here to ambush me, and I genuinely don't understand why. Because I'm tired, Lorraine suddenly shouted, slamming her hand on the desk. The sound echoed through the studio. I'm tired of watching people like you waltz through this industry, getting everything handed to you on a silver platter while the rest of us have to fight for every scrap of recognition. Ross King tried again. Lorraine, maybe we should take a break. Go to commercial and... We're not going to... Commercial, Lorraine snapped. Not until I've said what I need to say. Ranveer Singh stood up from her seat. Actually, Lorraine, I think we should go to commercial. This has gone too far. Sit down, Ranveer, Lorraine commanded. Sit down, right now. Ranveer didn't sit down. Instead, she looked at Holly with sympathy. Holly, you don't have to stay here and take this. Holly was already unclipping her microphone. Her hands were steady now, her decision made. You're right. I don't. Lorraine's eyes went wide. What are you doing? I'm leaving, Holly said simply. I came here to do something good, to talk about something that matters, and you've turned it into a circus. I won't be part of this. You can't just leave, Lorraine sputtered. We're in the middle of a live broadcast. Holly stood up, placing her microphone on the chair. Watch me." Lorraine's face had gone from red to almost purple. "If you walk off this set, Holly Willoughby, you will never work in this industry again. I will make sure of it. Do you understand me? I have connections. I have power. I can destroy your career with one phone call." The studio gasped. Even the camera operators looked shocked. Ross King's mouth literally hung open. Holly turned to face Lorraine one last time. When she spoke, her voice was clear and unwavering. "You know what, Lorraine? Go ahead. Make your phone calls. Use your connections. Because if this is what success in this industry looks like, if it turns you into someone who threatens people and bullies them on live television, then maybe I don't want any part of it." Ranveer Singh started clapping. Slowly at first, then louder. Several crew members joined in. Even Ross King, after a moment's hesitation, brought his hands together in applause. Lorraine looked around in disbelief. "What are you all doing? Stop that. Stop that right now." But nobody stopped. The applause grew louder. Holly felt tears streaming down her face now, but they weren't. Tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of standing up for herself, of refusing to be diminished. "You're all fired!" Lorraine screamed, pointing at the crew members who were clapping. "Every single one of you is fired." Ranveer Singh walked over to Holly and gently touched her arm. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's get you out of here." As Holly turned to leave, Lorraine made one last desperate attempt. "You think you're better than me? Is that it? You think because you're younger and prettier that you can just disrespect me like this?" Holly stopped walking. She didn't turn around. "I never thought I was better than you, Lorraine. I thought we were equals. I thought we were on the same team. But you've shown me today that you see everyone as either above you or beneath you. You can't imagine a world where we all just support each other." "Support each other?" Lorraine laughed bitterly. "This is television, Holly. This is the real world. There's no room for your naive little fantasies about women supporting women." Holly did turn around then. "That's the saddest thing you've said all day. Because you're wrong, Lorraine. There is room. There's always been room. You just chose not to make any." Lorraine stood up from her chair, her whole body shaking with rage. "Get out! Get out of my studio right now." "I'm already leaving," Holly said quietly. "You didn't have to tell me twice." As Holly walked toward the exit, Ranveer Singh by her side, Ross King finally found his courage. "Lorraine," he said, his voice sad rather than angry. "What have you done?" Lorraine whirled on him. "What have I done? What has she done, you mean? Coming in here with her holier-than-thou attitude, acting like she's some kind of saint." "She came here to talk about helping children," Ross said simply. "That's all she wanted to do. And you attacked her. Why?" Lorraine sank back into her chair, suddenly looking much older than she had at the start of the show. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me," Ross said. But Lorraine just shook her head, staring at the empty chair where Holly had been sitting moments before. Backstage, Holly was surrounded by production assistants and makeup artists, all expressing their shock and support. Someone handed her tissues. Someone else brought her water. A young intern, barely out of university, approached her nervously. "Miss Willoughby," the intern said, "I just wanted to say thank you for standing up for yourself. I've seen her treat people like that before, and nobody ever says anything." Holly managed a small smile. "You don't have to thank me. Everyone deserves to be treated with respect." Ranveer Singh was on her phone, texting rapidly. She looked up at Holly. "My agent is already calling. So is my publicist. This is going to be everywhere in about 5 minutes." Holly nodded. "I know, but I meant what I said in there. I'd rather be known for walking away from cruelty than for tolerating it." Back in the studio, Lorraine was still sitting in her chair, the cameras still rolling. The producers were frantically trying to figure out what to do. Cut to commercial? End the show early? Pretend nothing had happened? Ross King made the decision for them. He looked directly into the camera. "Well," he said with a sad smile, "I think we all just witnessed something quite extraordinary. And not in a good way. Sometimes in this business, we forget that the people we see on screen are real human beings with real feelings. I hope we can all learn something from what just happened here today." Lorraine finally seemed to realize the gravity of what she'd done. But Ross was already standing up, removing his microphone. "I think I need some air," he said quietly, and walked off the set. Lorraine sat alone at the desk, the cameras still pointed at her, capturing every moment of her humiliation. She looked around at the crew, at the empty chairs, at the chaos she had created. One of the producers finally called out, "Cut to commercial, now." The red lights on the cameras went off. The studio erupted into noise as everyone started talking at once. Lorraine remained seated, her hands gripping the edge of the desk, her knuckles white. In the dressing room, Holly was gathering her things. Her phone was ringing nonstop, but she ignored it. She just wanted to go home, to process what had happened, to figure out her next steps. Ranveer appeared in the doorway. "How are you holding up?" Holly let out a long breath. "I don't know. Part of me feels terrible. Part of me feels free. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense," Ranveer said. "You stood up to a bully. That's never easy, even when it's the right thing to do." "I really did look up to her," Holly said softly. "That's what makes this so hard. I wanted her to be the person I thought she was." "Sometimes people aren't who we want them to be," Ranveer replied, "but that doesn't mean you did anything wrong by believing in them." Holly nodded, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "I should go. Do you want me to walk you out? The Paps are probably gathering outside." "That would be nice, actually. Thank you." As they made their way through the corridors, staff members kept stopping Holly to express their support. A cameraman gave her a thumbs up. A sound technician told her she was brilliant. Even the security guard at the back entrance told her she'd done the right thing. Outside, the flashes from cameras were already starting. Ranveer squeezed Holly's hand. "You've got this." Holly squared her shoulders and walked out into the light. Back in the studio, Lorraine was finally alone in her dressing room. She stared at herself in the mirror, seeing the smudged makeup, the tired eyes, the face of someone who had just made a terrible mistake. Her phone buzzed. A text from her agent. 3 words. "Call me. Now." Another buzz. Her producer. "We need to talk." Another. "What were you thinking?" And another. And another. And another. Lorraine put her phone face down on the vanity. She couldn't look at it anymore. She couldn't look at herself anymore. In the hallway outside, producers and executives were gathered in urgent conversations. Words like damage control and public statement and consequences floated through the air. Ross King stood apart from them, leaning against the wall, looking exhausted. A young production assistant approached him. "Are you okay, Ross?" He shrugged. "I've been doing this job for a long time. I've seen a lot of things, but I've never seen someone self-destruct quite like that." "Do you think she meant it?" the assistant asked. "All those things she said?" Ross considered this. "I think she meant some of it. I think she's been carrying around a lot of resentment and jealousy for a long time, and today it all came pouring out. But that doesn't make it okay, and it doesn't excuse the way she treated Holly." Meanwhile, Holly was in her car, finally allowing herself to break down. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the reality of what had just happened was sinking in. She had just walked off one of the biggest daytime shows in the country. She had been threatened on live television. She had cried in front of millions of viewers, but she had also stood up for herself. She had refused to be bullied. She had set a boundary and stuck to it. Her phone rang again. This time, she answered. It was her mother. "Sweetheart," her mom's voice came through, warm and concerned. "I just saw what happened. Are you all right?" And Holly, sitting in the car park of a television studio, finally felt safe enough to tell the truth. "No, Mum, I'm not all right, but I will be. Do you want me to come get you?" "No, I can drive. I just need a minute." "What she said to you was unforgivable." "I know. You handled it beautifully." Holly smiled through her tears. "I just did what you always taught me. Stand up for myself. Don't let anyone make me feel small. That's my girl." They talked for a few more minutes before Holly finally felt steady enough to drive. She started the car, took one last look at the studio building in her rearview mirror, and pulled out of the car park. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know how this would affect her career, her reputation, her relationships in the industry. But she knew one thing for certain. She would never regret walking away from that desk. She would never regret choosing her dignity over a television appearance. She would never regret standing up to someone who had tried to make her feel worthless. Because at the end of the day, that's what it had all been about. Lorraine had tried to diminish her, to break her down, to make her feel like she didn't belong, and Holly had refused to accept that narrative. She had looked cruelty in the face and said no. She had drawn a line and refused to cross it. As Holly drove through the streets, her phone continued to buzz with messages of support. Colleagues, friends, people she hadn't spoken to in years, all telling her the same thing. She had done the right thing. She had been brave. She had shown grace under pressure. And maybe that was the real story. Not the confrontation itself, but what it revealed about character, about integrity, about the difference between someone who uses their platform to build people up and someone who uses it to tear people down. Holly thought about that intern who had thanked her, that young woman who had seen Lorraine's behavior before and felt powerless to call it out. Maybe now she would feel a little less powerless. Maybe now she would know that it's okay to walk away from toxicity, even when it comes from someone powerful. That thought made Holly sit up a little straighter, made her grip the steering wheel a little tighter, made her feel, for the first time since walking onto that set, like something good might come from all of this after all. Not for her career, maybe not even for her personally, but for everyone who had ever been made to feel small by someone who should have known better. For everyone who had ever been bullied by someone in a position of power. For everyone who had ever wanted to stand up for themselves but didn't know if they could. Holly had shown them that you could, that you should, that your dignity is worth more than any television appearance, any career opportunity, any amount of fame or success. She pulled into her driveway and sat in the car for a moment, letting the engine idle. Through the window, she could see her front door, the safety and comfort of home waiting for her. But she didn't get out right away. She needed this moment, this quiet moment to herself, before the storm of public reaction really hit, before the think pieces and the social media debates and the industry gossip mill went into overdrive. This moment where it was just her and her choices and her conscience, and all three were in agreement. She had done the right thing. Whatever came next, she could face it, knowing that when it mattered most, she had been true to herself. Finally, Holly turned off the engine and got out of the car. She walked up to her front door, put her key in the lock, and stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a soft click, shutting out the chaos of the day, the cameras, the confrontation, the cruelty. Inside was peace. Inside was home. Inside was the reminder that she was more than what had happened on that set. She was a daughter, a friend, a person with values and boundaries, and the strength to defend them both. And that was something no one could ever take away from her. Not with threats, not with intimidation, not with all the power and connections in the world. Holly Willoughby had walked off that set with her head held high and her integrity intact. and in the end, that was all that really mattered.